Hi folks, this is going to be what I call East of Egypt. We will be getting back to the Mediterranean in about 2 weeks. We left off with the Egyptians, Cleopatra and Mark Antony, getting up to the time of Christ, when we go from BCE to CE. So the book is going to call this Southeast and East Asia, South Asia. And I'm putting it in here because I know the textbook wants us to go right over across the Mediterranean to ancient Greece and the Minoan civilization. But I want to put this we're going to study India, China, and Japan for a little bit. And I want you to understand that these were civilizations that were evolving at the same time that Egypt was evolving. Now, there's going to be some little time discrepancies, but you're going to hear 3000 BC, you're going to hear 2000 BC, you're going to hear 1000 BC. You heard that in Egypt, so you're going to hear that in India for sure. You're going to hear that in China for sure. Japan, that's kind of a little later civilization, but one that I find very, very, very interesting. And if you study art history, Japanese art was the first foreign art to enter into mainstream European modern art in the 1850s and make some changes. Now, I do have to tell you that this video may get a little noisy. You may hear dogs bark. Things are happening around the house here. So just, this is amateur TV. I might have to cut it, come back for part 2. But let's get started. I always like to start with a map, okay? And in the map here, you're going to see India in green, and you're going to see Thailand and Cambodia down in the pink kind of zone. And Egypt is over here. Now, right in between, there's this thing called Iraq, there's this thing called Afghanistan, there's this thing called Pakistan, okay? These are all names that are in the news right now, and I'm sure that you're going to realize Kandahar, you're going to hear places that we've been having troops deployed to, and lots of struggles going on. Now, when you get to this screen on your devices, I want you to look real hard for the Ganges River, and the Ganges River is over here on this side, and I want you to look real hard for the Indus River. If you'll recall, Mesopotamia had the Tigris and Euphrates, and they centered their civilizations there. When we moved to Egypt, the Nile, it was the Nile that did it. So here on the Earth's surface, the geography favored these rivers that were flowing out of the Himalayas. Himalayas. I don't know. Are you British? I say Himalayas. Okay, the Himalayas, which were feeding life-supporting rivers that came down through India. So just remember, this is another example of early man settling and starting to build cities and towns and agriculture around these rivers. So the dates are going to be going all over the place. So you need to really pay attention to the dates. And the other thing that I want you to pay attention to is when you see a visual on your device, it'll have a little tiny man logo down in the right corner, and I want you to click on that man logo, and it will give you a reference to the human scale of how big these things is. This is a pretty doggone big pillar right here, a column, and if you'll remember, we were in Turkey, we were in early Turkey, and you saw some beautiful palaces that had picked up on the Greek architecture. So you will find that the early classical, the Greek civilization had reached out and influenced some of the Persian and further afield some of the other cultures in the Indus Valley and India. That is not cuneiform, okay? Those are seals. They're made out of clay, so they are very similar. And I just think that these are some of the coolest seals in early art. I'd love to have a blow-up of one of these hanging on my wall, or maybe even a sculptural relief plaque. Again, it might have been influenced by Mesopotamia and cuneiform art. You're going to be seeing two different kinds of temples. So when you see a stupa, which is a rounded, domed figure, it's not empty inside. The only thing that resembles a tomb is that there are artifacts of the Buddha or some important people, bodhisattvas. There are artifacts that are in this solid mound. And you don't go into these, but there are walkways that you circumvent. You go around and around and you say prayers. Something like one of the mazes that you might see in a Christian cathedral or a Christian church that you're designed to walk through. Now, you're going to hear about Buddhism and you're going to hear about Hinduism. So Hinduism is going to have mountains. This is not so much a mountain, this is a dome. But when the Hindu religious order built their temples, they would literally try and make a mountain with a huge vertical axis in it, and there would be a space inside for their god or their goddess. Egypt had a lot of gods and goddesses. The Hindus are going to have all different kinds of gods and goddesses. Buddhism is going to have what they call bodhisattvas, which are human beings, not necessarily gods, but they help people out. So you are going to find out that there are different styles of Buddhas, okay, and that these styles will indicate geography and they will indicate a time period, okay? So these different looking Buddhas are stylistic indicators of how you can kind of judge approximate dates and approximate places, because India is a big country. Some of you were very interested in iconography and symbolism in Egypt, and you are going to find that there are hand signs here, mudras, and each one of these on a piece of sculpture is sending a message to an informed audience, sending a message about what is being said by the mute piece of visual art. Again, those of you who are interested in symbols, you're interested in angels and demons. I don't know if you've read that book or not, but in this early Buddhist carving here, it's a high relief carving. You're going to hear the story of who's doing what, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, and what the challenges are. I've had to edit this chapter down severely, so you won't be seeing this, but you may see it in the flashcards, and if you have curiosity, you might want to go back and look it up. These look like they're freestanding buildings that have been built up, but take a note right over here, this is a mountainside, and what they did was they excavated and they cut down, 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 and as they cut down, they formed the architecture of this building. And some of these are enterable, some of these are carved so that you can get inside of them. But it's what we would call subtractive sculpture. It's not additive sculpture, and it's not sculpture. These are literally huge, huge, huge temple complexes that you can walk around and appreciate. Well, here's some more bas-relief, amazing cosmos. There's references to different animals. There's references to different temples. And the British, if you'll remember, the British decided that they needed to take over India, and literally at first it was by political intrigue, and then later it was with military force. And that time period that the British moved into India is way beyond the scope of this textbook. It was much, much, much later. We're dealing in a time period from 3000 BC to about 1200 AD. The British came in about 1830, I'm not sure, early 1800s. And the British were at that time under this set of morals that was called Victorianism. And Victorianism was prim and proper. I had a really wonderful art teacher that had researched Victorian photography, and he was fascinated to show us pictures of ladies at the beach. And when they went to the beach, they got in this very, very, very small changing room, which was on top of a buggy with great big wheels. And the ladies would change into their swimming garments, which looked an awful lot like what they wore. They were high neck collars, they were buttoned up at the neck, they had swimming bloomer petticoats on. And when they were ready to go for a swim, they would ring a bell, and the attendant would push the wagon into the surf to the point where the lady could open her door just at sea level. She could open her door and look to the right and look to the left and slip into the ocean and meet her friends and frolic around. I don't know how she didn't drown because of all those skirts and petticoats, but then when she was done swimming, she'd get back and ring the bell, and the attendant would pull her out, and she'd get changed back into her proper and prim clothes. So everybody remember that the British at the time that they took over India were all prim and proper. I have to tell you that when they discovered certain Hindu temples, it just blew them away. I will show you some pictures here that are X-rated pictures, but I want you to understand that Vedic Hinduism at one point talked a lot about love, and not just spiritual love. They talked about physical love as being a manifestation of God's love. And so for a period of time, the temples would illustrate sexual encounters. So in your book, you're going to see samples of what the Hindus could. They didn't even blink an eye at it. They thought that this was natural. They thought that this was beautiful. They thought that it was a way of becoming closer to God. But the Victorians were just shocked. They could not believe that anybody could do that sort of subject matter outside of the naughty little porno industry that was the subset of the Victorian times. They were prim and proper, but they also had naughty, dirty French postcards and things like that. So when they came to India and they discovered that not only were there pictures of people engaged in sex, that this was actually part of religion, and it would be like attending a cathedral. Instead of seeing stained glass windows of Jesus and the Bible, these people were seeing physical love being manifested. So a word of warning, if you are prim and proper yourself, you may not want to look too carefully at what's going on. This is my favorite piece of sculpture right here. You will hear about Shiva, and you will hear that Shiva has many manifestations. Sometimes Shiva is a man, sometimes Shiva is a woman. Sometimes Shiva takes a shape man-like, sometimes takes a shape of animal-like. It's very hard to wrap your head around all the different gods and goddesses in this place. I'm